Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it's good to be back from Zagreb, sitting here in front of you in the camera to talk about all things Celtic. We've missed a wee bit over the past couple of days, including a late match reaction to Tuesday night's draw over in Zagreb. I had a great time. The game, not so great, but nonetheless, we move on. We have a huge weekend ahead of us as Celtic take on Rangers in the League Cup final. But before we talk about that, we've got a few things that demand our attention. So, strap yourselves in and let's talk about that. If you haven't already, please go down below and hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated, and it would be a lovely Christmas present considering we're about 40 subscribers away from 47,000. The number one most subscribed to Celtic fan channel on YouTube, and that's all down to you guys. Thank you so much for your support in the year of 2024, and it will continue right through to 2025, even as things start to get a little bit silly. That's right, silly season is upon us. We have a lot of transfer news to talk about today, amongst other things, but I want to start with the more serious conversations. Thank you for your patience as you've waited to hear from me returning from Zagreb. I know that it was a bit frustrating not being able to get a match reaction up following the game on Tuesday night. Long story cut short, I was absolutely shattered when I got back to the apartment. I had a flight very early yesterday morning. I needed some sleep. I got a good bit of sleep. Was still absolutely done in. But I did do a live stream last night. If you've not checked it out, it is under the live section on the channel, so you can go hear all my opinions on the game over there. But to keep it brief, painfully poor game of football. Great trip, terrible game. That doesn't necessarily mean I think it was a terrible result for Celtic. I know that there's been a lot of discourse online surrounding the game, and a lot of people getting very frustrated and voicing their concern about it, and then people fighting them over the concern and saying that it's too much, it's OTT. And I even had that on my stream last night, a few people thinking that I was attacking Celtic for that result, and I still think it was a poor result, but not as poor as what some are making out. Listen, you're going to a place that's very difficult to go against the side champions of the respective nation. They're set up and playing a brand of football which made it hard for us to play against. I just hope we don't look back on this in the Bruges game, for example, as a missed opportunity. That's all. Now, we're still in a very, very good place, and realistically, I think that the draw is a good point, but it's all about what that final narrative will be, and I think that's the biggest thing about it for me. If Celtic are through, nobody's going to care that we drew against Zagreb away from home. In fact, I think that Celtic fans will be pretty unanimous in saying it was a great point. Poor game, great point considering. If we were to somehow go out of the Champions League in these next two games, then people are going to talk about it with a lot more criticism and a lot more anger, probably. So, if we go through, nobody's going to care. If we go out, everybody's going to look at that as the game, I think, where we really blew our chances. Zagreb being one of the weaker opponents that we should have beaten. But until then, there's always going to be that mixed reception to it. And you've just got to deal with that. You know, you're not going to agree with absolutely everyone on that game, but what I think we can agree with is it was a boring game of football. Celtic didn't do enough in the final third, and we only have ourselves to blame for not scoring goals. We could have and should have been better on the night, but listen, I'd rather the point than none, and things are looking good and set up in a good way for match day 7 in January. So listen, we've got big games before that, and we've got obviously a busy schedule, so one game at a time, and we'll talk about the Champions League again when we need to. And good news though, surrounding Tuesday night's result, we do have some silver linings to go through, some comfort in Celtic's draw. Statistics show that Celtic should be through to the next round. Here was one earlier on published by Football Meets Data, and I know data is not for everyone, but it can be quite reliable. Here being shown that Celtic have a very solid chance of making it through to the next round. In fact, a 95% chance of making it through to the knockout game, or the knockout playoff I should say, following the conclusion of the league phase, which is comforting to hear. And realistically, you are playing a side in young boys who need to come to Celtic Park, who are out the competition, 9th in their league table right now. Celtic should be winning that game. The scary thing is, Celtic are the type of football club that with a 95% chance of progressing to the next round, we'll typically find ourselves in a position where we take the 5%. You know, so that does worry me. But at the end of the day, we're in a very strong place. I think that in retrospect, being where we are in the Champions League right now and having that chance of going through is exactly what we dreamed of when the draw was done. So these results can be disappointing, but the dust has settled now. I think cool heads will prevail, and it would take a monumental cock up now. So let's just hope that doesn't happen. Also, here is an update from the same page on Twitter of the Champions League prize money rankings over match day 6. Celtic have now made around 40 million euros from this Champions League group stage, reportedly, which includes, obviously, placement money that could rise, go down, depending on what happens. So far, 6.3 million in bonuses through the results that we've gathered, and a few other things as well. So 40 million that will hit the club's bank account very, very soon, hopefully. Things are good. Listen, being in the Champions League is where we need to be. Progressing is where you're hoping to be. I think generally we can't be too disappointed with how this has gone. We are on our longest unbeaten run in Europe since, what, the 1980s? I think that was what the statistics said. There's no point in getting too down about things right now. As I said, I think cooler heads will prevail. But there's still definitely room for improvement. Talking about room for improvement, transfer window's coming up, isn't it? Which means silly season has arrived. Hit the Celtic transfer talk music. Right, we've got a few things to talk about, and I'm going to start with Jonjoe Kenny because I want it done and out the way, and I know people are already commenting on my videos from the last couple of days saying, Ryan, Jonjoe Kenny, we're getting linked with Jonjoe Kenny. It's rubbish, man. Don't believe everything you see. So the Daily Record must have had a slow news day yesterday because they did report on this themselves. They put a headline on Twitter that gathered some traction. In their article that they published yesterday, they said that a surprise rumour emerging in Germany is that Celtic could be making a move to bring Jonjoe Kenny back to the club after a ill-fated spell on loan from Everton at Celtic Park back in 2021. They credited Bild, the German publication, saying that they linked him with a move to either Celtic or Bournemouth in the January window, as they are trying to sell him to recoup a transfer fee. They did say at the end of their article, in fairness, that they're treating it with a dollop of scepticism, but you know what these publications are like. They need their interaction. They want people to retweet and reply on Twitter. That's why they're putting it out there. They don't really care. Just don't fall for anything, though. The Daily Record know what they've been doing with this one. I've been using my very small amount of German that I know this afternoon, rummaging through the Bild website for this reported article, which is nowhere to be found. I can't see anything on Bild linking Jonjoe Kenny with Celtic. The only thing that could be found was this tweet that was posted by an account called Fifth, saying that Bournemouth and Celtic are among clubs targeting Jonjoe Kenny, and that they want to sign him. That Hertha are tempted to sell him before his contract expires in the summer, and they credited Bild at the end of the tweet. But that was, I think, where everything has come from. That's the tweet that gathered some traction online. They mentioned Bild at the end, but I don't think it was on Bild, and the account has 237 followers. So it's gathered a very normal reaction on Twitter, you can imagine, as people fear the worst of Jonjoe Kenny returning to Celtic. It's absolute bollocks. He's not coming back. Celtic are not interested. I can categorically confirm that for you. And the worst part about that is it doesn't take a genius to categorically deny there's any truth in this. We should all be able to figure that out. In other news, though, Celtic have been linked with a couple of players moving into this January transfer window. We're going to look over them now. Of course, we do have work to do, and I think stories are going to start rapidly developing, especially after Sunday's cup final. So you know where to come for any opinion or all the updates and whether or not they're true or bollocks. The next couple, there will be dashes of truth through. I'm not saying that Celtic are signing these players or they're destined to be playing in the hoops anytime soon, but I do believe they'll be on shortlist somewhere at Celtic Park. So let's have a look through them. The first name that has popped up over the past few days is Lyon midfielder Mahamadou Diawara, who is a name that is familiar with this channel. If you've been watching me throughout the last year or so, you'll have remembered his name maybe because Celtic reportedly made a bid for him in the summer. It was reported by a French journalist in the summer transfer window that Celtic had made an offer. Brendan Rodgers wanted Mahamadou Diawara, and this was a week before the transfer window closed. Celtic were apparently not the only team who bidded, but it didn't go anywhere further than that. Of course, Celtic ended up signing Luke McCowan and Arne Engels in the centre mid positions towards the end of that transfer window, and we heard nothing more about Mahamadou Diawara until now, because apparently Celtic are still interested and are targeting the player moving into the January transfer window. As always, I will say, take it with a pinch of salt, but he is reportedly available for a cut price fee. Celtic's offer in the summer was set to be apparently a loan deal with an £8 million clause, or €8 million, I should say, clause, which was rejected by Lyon. But according to another publication in France, Lyon are open to a sale worth between €4 and €5 million, which is of course half the price, resulting mainly down to the appearances he's made this season. If you go and look at Mahamadou Diawara's season, he hasn't played a lot of football. A couple of appearances in Ligue 1, a couple of appearances in the Europa League, which included 15 minutes against Rangers when they beat them at Ibrox. And in terms of senior football, that's it. Not a lot of minutes in general. About half an hour, I think, or maybe just more than half an hour he's played all season. They can't really justify getting much more for him, but he's only 19 years of age, high ceiling, a lot of interest there in the summer from teams around France, and apparently Celtic, of course. And now Celtic reportedly, and Brendan Rodgers specifically, looking at it being a potential move in January. My final sort of word on this one is that I would treat it with a little bit of patience and slight scepticism. I think it's an easy one for journalists to report on when his name has previously come up in the past, but at the same time, it would make a lot of sense if we looked at him in the summer. He's not played a lot of football and he's available for a cheaper fee now, and Brendan Rodgers is a fan of him, then it definitely all adds up. So I do believe his name is somewhere on a list at Celtic. That is one we're looking at, but for the amount of money and for the fact that we already have a stacked centre mid area, I'm not sure it's one that Celtic would be ready to pounce on yet, but nonetheless, his name is doing the rounds, and Celtic are apparently a team who are interested. And talking about central midfielders, not the only one we've been linked with over the past 24 hours, because Celtic apparently interested in Bosnian international central midfielder as well, Benjamin Tahirovic. Gianluca Di Marcio in Italy is reporting that Celtic are one of several clubs who are interested in Ajax midfielder Benjamin Tahirovic as of the January transfer window, and it looks as though he could be in for a move. Formerly played at Roma with Jose Mourinho, which is why I think the reports are coming out of there. One that Jose Mourinho has given a lot of praise for in the past. Yeah, one that's kind of crept up over the past 24 hours as well. Now, he did say he would be a great player, Jose Mourinho, and hopefully that could be the case, but currently applying his trade at Ajax, it hasn't been going so well from there. Not a lot of football for him, similar to Diawara, who we spoke about a moment ago. Only 3 appearances across all competitions for the central midfielder this year. 1 in the league, 1 in the Europa League, and in the Campione Divisione, which I believe might be with the B team, but I'm not entirely sure on that. Don't quote me on it. Put it this way, not playing a lot of football and looking for a move at age 21. He wants to be playing, he wants to be starting. I don't think that would necessarily happen for him at Celtic, but certainly not happening for him at Ajax right now. The interesting one about this lad is he's more of a deep-lying midfielder, and would be competing for a spot with Callum McGregor, and I am a fan of that. Not saying that Callum McGregor is needing replaced anytime soon or anything like that, but I have always worried of what will happen if McGregor gets injured. I don't think we're suitably equipped in that kind of position, the number 6 you could say. If McGregor was to go out, I don't think we have someone who like for like comes in, and we maybe do need someone slightly more defensive. And obviously Callum McGregor's playing a hell of a lot of football. He's had a few games where people question if he's maybe not at his best. I love him to absolute bits, and I won't join in any of that conversation, but I think he could be doing with a little bit of, I don't know, stress relief, perhaps. Maybe someone who can come in and relieve him of his duties in a game. So, I mean, we should be looking at defensive midfielders, and potentially it could be Tahirovic. He did play quite a bit under Jose Mourinho in the Serie A before he was sacked. That's where he kind of made his breakthrough at age 19, 20, but it's just not went the way he wants it to at Roma right now, and Celtic are reportedly one of the clubs who are willing to pick up on that opportunity. And that is about it for today. As I said, silly season is picking up, and we are going to be talking about a lot of names, I feel, in the next couple of weeks or so. Of course, we're just rubbishing John Joe Kenny and putting it to the side. Don't even want to talk about that. But everything else, treat with a pinch of salt, and I'll try and gauge who's more realistic than others. Right now, I think it's just kind of starting, so we'll get a better idea, I think, over the next fortnight. So stay with me, and I'll try and get you through that. Anyway, until then, thank you for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.